All right. Live stream's happening, folks. So, hi, welcome everyone. Welcome Kimberly and welcome our Narnia of Light. So, everyone, this is a little different accelerated ascension podcast. The whole point of this podcast is to give everyone information, ascension codes, healings as needed, but ultimately it is to give you more understanding of the ascension process. And I've got an incredible guest, our Narnia of Light. So our Narnia of Light, our Narnia, if we will. I met her back, I believe it was in November. November 11th is when we kind of had our informal introduction. She was a guest speaker on the Conscious Awakening Network's Walk-In Soul Experiencers or WISE conference, where I was also a speaker. And I had noticed her, when I did the review, I have noticed, and we all do this, right? We go back and watch the other speakers. I'm like, geez, what's going on with these folks? And then I caught her, and I'm like, wow, she's interesting. There's something definitely unique here. So I reached out and we connected, and she was, well, I would almost say instantly, we'll use that word instantly, able to recognize some of the things that I needed in my life to continue on my journey. As many of you know, I'm also a walk-in soul, a little different than my friend here. But ultimately, I needed assistance. I needed to begin my expansion and my growth. And she was the person the universe put in my place in order for that process. So since that, we've become fantastic friends. And she is the beautiful soul that was able to assist me in this amazing adventure of my soul over the past 2 months now, almost 2 months here in Mexico. So our Narnia, her bio, if you will, is a Narnia of light. She's a multi-universal, interdimensional energy facilitator, a channel, an intuitive who aids people to address the root cause of whatever is showing up in their life at a mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual, energetic, or physical, or any combination of these to bring healing, awakening, growth, expansion, and ascension level work for the mind, the body, and the soul. And today's topic is the life of the soul, incarnation, the nature of evolution, and the process of embodiment. Embodiment, and what does it mean? And before I hand it over to her, let me just tell you how important this is. So many of you always ask me, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And Arnarnia is going to give you that explanation from a very, very broad, and correct me if I'm wrong, Arnarnia, very, very broad sense of, hey, how did we get here? What does that journey look like outside and inside embodiment, if you will? And I'm going to kind of pause there, and I'm going to turn it over to our Narnia. If you're ready to go, let's this dialogue. Let's have some fun.
Okay. So I am also, how I arrived here is there was a natal soul. A natal soul is someone who is born into the body, right? Just like most of us are familiar with the birth process. We arrive here on the planet after a journey from the great beyond into physical form. And that is referred to as a natal soul. So someone born into the body, just like you would call an astrological chart a natal chart, right? Your birth chart. So the there was an agreement between my former soul aspect, and I'll explain that in a moment, Jerusalem, and the natal soul, because walk-in agreements are often made prior to coming. And it's a mutual agreement between two souls. Sometimes there's an emergency trade out, an agreement at last minute, but that's under very rare circumstances. And so the natal soul and my former soul aspect had an agreement that the natal soul would do her evolutionary work here, and that at a certain given time that my former soul aspect, Jerusalem, would walk into the body when the natal soul walked out. So what does that mean? It's it the most common entry, although there are exceptions, into the body is through the top of the head, the crown chakra. And after the baby's actually born and comes out, the soul enters into the body at the time of birth through the top of the head and usually exits out the body through the top of the head upon leaving at death, right? Or during a near-death experience and will return the same way. Again, there's exceptions, and there's no set methodology to those exceptions. So the reason there was an agreement between the natal soul and my former soul aspect, Jerusalem, was because in a past life that they both knew each other, and the natal soul's husband actually caused Jerusalem's death, and the natal soul knew about it in that lifetime and didn't say anything. And so as a form of atonement, you would call that karma here in these terms. The reason the Jerusalem got the body was because the natal soul had a karmic debt to her. And so Jerusalem was coming here. Why do people walk in? Well, sometimes you've got evolutionarily advanced souls who are here to do a very deep evolutionary process because they're already very far along in their ascension process, and or a contributive mission. And they don't need to go through the long developmental process because they've already evolved to a level of awareness of how the universe works, their role in it, and take on a creational contributive role to life itself. And so beings will walk in for that reason rather than being born. And this is how come there's often a switch. So Jerusalem came in, and I'll explain the difference between Jerusalem and myself in a moment. Jerusalem came in to work through the past lives she had here on Earth to finish her evolutionary work in order to ascend into the galactic realm. So, or complete her evolutionary purpose. So she completed her evolutionary purpose, and I am a higher self aspect of the same oversoul that we come from. And so what happened was, me being a higher self aspect of the same oversoul, and I'll explain this in a minute as well, came because Jerusalem had completed her purpose and the body still had a progressionary time level to be used. I arrived, merged, walked in. She walked in 2021, was here for 2 years, completed her evolutionary work, and I was downloaded in through the top of the head. Jerusalem and I were together for 3 days for her to kind of show me the ropes. We made final decisions, and we attuned our frequencies to one another, and then we merged.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's how I arrived. And so now we'll go into some basic definitions so that there's a little more clarity about the things that we're talking about. So the term oversoul is when we all separated, when source, God, creator, father, unified field, because to me they're all the same thing, separated, it's himself or itself, and we all came into being. Those individual sparks of light that separated from source and know that they're of the universe and retain the consciousness of their divine origin as an aspect of source, individuated, that's the oversoul, right? And that's the one that we call our higher self here in this dimensional realm, right? We refer to that as the higher self. And so just like the universe split up into many, 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 many aspects to learn about itself, so too does the oversoul, right? So the oversoul will split itself up into many soul aspects to do living in different places throughout the universe on different timelines and different multiverse, different universes or dimensional bands simultaneously to speed up its learning. Because there was just one soul doing one learning, it would take forever. Gotcha. And so a soul aspect now remember, the oversoul is the part that came from source. So that's the divine spark, your higher self that's in touch with the universe, knows the game plan, and is helping you navigate your journey down here and remains connected to you, right?
Mhm.
And all of the soul aspects that it splits up into, and there's no set number, it can vary, and that's out of my realm to talk about right now. It'd take too much time, and I wouldn't do it due justice, as that's not my deep inner knowing. I just have basic knowledge about that. And so it'll split itself up into all of these different varying levels of being at different levels of consciousness, different levels of density, living in all these different places to do its learning. And as these different soul aspects complete their learning, it could be one year they're alive, it could be 5,000 years, it could be 1,000,000 years, it could be 5 billion years. It just depends on how long it takes that soul aspect to complete its given set lessons of learning. And when it does, it either will be handed a new assignment or merge back into the oversoul. And as the oversoul gradually raises in consciousness back into greater understanding of who it is, where it came from, and why it exists, then the less soul aspects that are needed, right?
Mhm.
So the less soul aspects that are needed, eventually all of the soul aspects will merge back into the oversoul. And then we'll get into that later. I'm just giving basic definition right now, so I don't want to go any farther. And
Okay.
so now the next definition, so that's an oversoul, is the spark that came from source, your higher self. So when we talk about, oh, I'm connecting to my higher self, you're connecting to either higher vibrational aspects of the same oversoul and communicating,
Mhm.
or you're connected to the oversoul itself. And
Okay.
so self can mean either one of those two things. Okay.
Mhm.
And then then we have dimension and density. And so we use those interchangeably here in these realms, on Earth, and they're not the same thing. They're completely different things. So basically, dimensions are perspectives. They're the way that we create our worldview and the reality that we live in. Okay. So
Mhm.
they're levels of perspective. So we can be in a three-dimensional reality, right? Embodied in three-dimensional form, and have a 20-second dimensional perspective, because dimensions are perspectives. And so you can, if you are able to work on gradually, incrementally expanding your consciousness, then you can reach higher states of consciousness and still be in a lower density.
Right, right. Okay.
So now densities are vibrational vibrational levels of mass, right? They're
Yep.
they're vibrational levels of matter. They're what make up. So, and there's two kinds. There's there's thought forms, like every thought is a thing.
Mhm.
There's thought forms, and those thoughts are what start the material process of creation, right? Like bringing things into being. And then there's Ken, and then there's, this glass of water. There are two different vibrational levels of mass. Okay. But
Right.
because so density is vibrational levels of mass. And you can't have a be in a really dense third dimensional vibrational pattern and go up to the 20-second density. Why? Because you're not vibrating at the same level. You're vibrating at too heavy a level to be able to reach that level, that higher vibrational, lighter level of mass, of matter.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And so how how do people stay? I think this is a good place to go, and then we'll start at the beginning, you know?
Hmm.
So the I lost my train of thought. So we can exist, how people are able to continue to ascend and go to higher and higher levels of embodied being is because what happens in my understanding, just just like there are, I wanted to say there are many levels of truth because there are many levels of perception, right?
Right. Hmm.
Everyone's a different level of reality. So what I'm sharing with you today is my understanding based on my soul's experience. I really wanted to highlight that, okay? Um, and the purpose of sharing these things is to open your own vibrational truth, right? So how that happens is as our consciousness expands, so too does the vibration of the consciousness with which we're existing in the body, right?
Yep.
And that vibratory pattern changes the level of mass that it is contained within. And it actually it raises the vibration slightly. And so as you raise the vibration, the body still retains matter by incrementally reaching higher levels of frequency so that as it gradually acquires different levels of frequency, it becomes made of different levels of matter, right? Like
Hmm.
here in the first dimension, we're like carbon based, right? But as you move up in vibration, you can be um silicon crystalline, or the matter that the body's made out of gets lighter as the consciousness expands and the vibrational pattern changes what the actual body's made out of because of what it's resonating. And so this is how we can have become more and more evolved and have these really evolved, high vibrational souls in third dimensional reality, but vibrating at a higher density so that they're able to actually be at that level of density in form.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, but I'm following it.
Okay. So the life of the soul, how did we get here? Um, in my understanding, at the very beginning, and I don't know what came before the before, right? I
Hmm.
don't know what came before the creation. I look forward to knowing that one day. I can't answer that before. What I do understand in my understanding is that source, Father, God, Creator, unified field, because they're all the same. I'm just going to say source. Uh, began to turn his reflection in on himself. Sorry, we had an accident there.
Hmm.
Turn his attention on him, in on himself. And I just say himself because it's like an action oriented energy. We're talking just like a positive pole oriented energy. Started to source turned the reflection of the consciousness of which he exists in on himself. And that reflection turned in on itself started to create a permeation between the layers of consciousness with which source exists. Okay. And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is this wonderment created energetic spaces in between what was formerly a unified consciousness. Because as it began to reflect on itself, that reflection created a new perspective. And that perspective created space. And as that perspective created space, the space started creating new dimensional bands within the unified field itself because of that reflection. And that what that did is that wonderment started to take on larger and larger and larger intentional resonance. And that resonance started to amplify through those different layers, just like you would, like an echo would, or when you speak in an amphitheater. So think of that, all that vastness, and a thought emanating louder, with greater and greater resonance because of the spacing that was starting to take place. And as that magnitude grew, that force became more and more and more amplified. And as it became more and more amplified, it began to fracture. And that fragmenting created a massive explosion akin to the Big Bang belief, the Big Bang theory. They're talking about the same thing. And in that explosion came all of us. And so, just like there are many stars in the universe, not all of them, we all came into existence at the same time. We didn't all come into consciousness at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, just like it, and I'll explain that. So, the first waves of sound, right, that traveled, the first waves of sound and light that traveled off source, creator, right, and became the expanse of the unified field in which everything exists, have different levels of consciousness. So the waves of sound and light that traveled off source first had the highest levels of consciousness. And so those would be like your first wave Elohim, your second wave Elohim, your third wave Elohim. And the first three waves, in my understanding, retained the highest levels of source consciousness, and those became your creation level beings. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So then, again, this is my understanding. And so as those waves still continued to come, think about the like a magnitude, a huge earthquake, the highest magnitude that's ever been on record. How long do those ripples travel out? I mean, they go on for a very long time. And so this emanation of waves kept going out and out, and gradually they became denser and denser and denser and less conscious because they were the last thing to travel off, right?
Okay.
And so just like when a star explodes, most of the mass is in the first expulsion, right? The more that travels off, the less substance there is that travels off. So you can think of that in terms of consciousness, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
And all of these different waves started self-organizing due to frequency. And as they started self-organizing due to frequency, they began to arrange themselves into dimensional bands, which you now know in these realms as multiverses.
Okay.
And what multiverses, in my understanding, are they're just like we have a body, and the body is a vessel, but it has many subsystems within it, right? Like an octave will have, there's a full scale, but it has many octaves, right? So each dimensional band will have many sub frequencies within it. Okay. So that's why we have scales, because everything's on a spectrum of existence from highest to least and everything in between.
Okay.
This is the creational wave of the organization of the universe itself, is that in all of those waves, they self-organized into bands of consciousness, and then sub-frequencies within those bands of consciousness. And so each universe, in my understanding, there are currently I won't get into that now because people will ask too many questions. I'm just going to say that prior to changes that have taken place, which is a talk for another time, there were 22 universes. Okay. There are currently two more, but we won't get into that right now. That's for another time. So there are 22 universes. And the reason that there are 22 is because each universal band and all of the subharmonics that it's made up of is a place, is a holding place for all of that, all of those beings, all of that consciousness that's resonating at that frequency to exist. So it has a realm to exist, to learn, to grow, and to transmit from. And also so that all life can evolve back up into the highest levels where it came from, right? So you have all of these different universes within the multiverse that are holding places for evolutionary beingness and for to evolve into from lowest levels of consciousness on up. So there's it's basically, and it's all of these, universes combined that make up what we know. Everything in existence creates the unified field. Why? Because we are all a source of the oneness of all that is, right? So everything in existence is an aspect of the field from which it came. And therefore, because it's an aspect of the field from which it came, it's helping to create the very field that it exists within. And I think, so to say something is that you are of the universe. So by the nature of your design, you already are a creation level being. And it's remembering that we are that starts the ball rolling to all these deeper changes, even in the smallest way. And so, yeah, I think that's a good place to start. So incarnation, what does that mean really exactly? You ask 10,000 people, you're going to get 50,000 different answers.
Okay.
That's my take on it. So with incarnation, that initial impulse to want to know the self created an individuation that allowed for self-reflection, and that individuation that retains the wholeness from which it came because it's created from it, creates something that is very unique. It creates a living consciousness that permeates everything. And that living consciousness is what creates the Akashic records, the Hall of Records, the living library. It's that living consciousness that creates these places to do the learning within, these realms, right? Whether that be Earth or Saturn or Neptune or anything. It's that impulse to know the self, but having come from creation that allows for there to be structures and frameworks with which to create.
Okay.
Because okay, so the soul, I'm going to take a step back. The soul is made of light and sound. Okay? And light and sound create plasma. And plasma is very unique because it is like liquid light, right? Picture like liquid gelatin that hasn't, it's almost formed, but it hasn't really completely, and how it can flow through things and still hold its shape, but be fluid at the same time. So that's what the soul is like, right? It's made of soul plasma, which consists of light and of sound, in my understanding. And so because you're made of plasma, that becomes the template for matter. Because why? It's a fluidly dynamic solid that can be formed into anything and encoded.
Okay.
Okay? And
Hmm.
it creates templates. So the soul is made of plasma. And so it can it can be encoded with, it can retain things, just like you can program a crystal,
Hmm.
right? You can, the soul is like a liquid crystal. We often hear that the body's made of liquid crystal. The fascia is liquid crystal. We have liquid crystal in our ears to help us retain our balance. Well, there's a reason for that. It's because if crystals retain information. And so if we retain information, we can learn. Not only can we learn, but we can retain what we've learned and we can continue to add to it.
Okay.
Okay. And
Hmm.
so the Peruvian belief is that we're living crystals. And this is why. So that's people who work with crystals. That the Peruvian belief is, especially from the seven rays from Chincharo, they will say you are a crystal, right? And this
Hmm.
is why. And so um, to go back, you we now have all of these creation level beings, which we're all creation level beings, but the ones that retained their consciousness that are helping to create life. Uh, and I'm not going to get into all of the creation story and all of that because that would take a long time.
Are you sure?
So, abridged version. So,
No.
some creation level beings who came directly from source, who understood the principle of creation and how to continue to evolve themselves because they came straight from source. And so
Hmm.
what they did was they split themselves up into aspects and they traveled down into different dimensional bands to start seeding life throughout all of these different universes. Okay. And that's
Hmm.
how we, in my understanding, they're known by many names. The name that I know them by is the founders. And they created the Lyrian race, which seeded all of humanity. All of the races came from the Lyrians. And as originally, the Lyrians were a peaceful race, and there were other two deviated, had over into different, heavier, denser frequencies. And that polarity what created a friction, and that friction caused conflict, and there was warring. And because of that, the Lyrians were, because they moved farther and farther away from the source from which they came, they lost their creation ability. They
Oh.
lost their ability. And as they lost their ability to create, they needed to control and lord over things. They could, they could, they could create through control and entrapment, right?
Hmm.
And manipulation, not through creational level thought form because they'd gone too far in the other direction and were so far from the source of their own light that they could no longer retain that information or be connected to it. And so it created this conflict where they wanted what others had. And so through that warring, the Lyrians were displaced. And as they were spread throughout the galaxy, they became isolated. So like on Madagascar, for example,
Hmm.
or these remote places, life that came from other places took on a very unique evolutionary trajectory because they were in an isolated place evolving separately. As above, so below. So you have these, um, so you have all of these original races now spread throughout all these galaxies, right?
Hmm.
And all of these planets evolving separately over time. And that's where we got the Andromedans and the Syrians and the Palladians and all of these things. So that's that process in a nutshell. Now, how do we get here on this planet, right?
Hmm.
So we get here on this planet the soul's trajectory for learning is to go through a myriad of experiences in order to go through the entirety of what's possible from highest to lowest, going through many creational level forms to understand the process of creation itself through living through every aspect of creational existence which makes up that source separated into. And once we've gone full circle and we understand the process of creation itself, we then reach the level from which we were created. And then we can merge back or we can continue on, right?
Okay.
And so what happens is we're made of light. And so what happens when you refract light? It comes into 7 colors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there are many chakras, many, 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 many chakras, but there are 7 primary in the body, and there are 4 important ones that help bring us in over the head. And those are the ones that I'm going to talk about, okay?
Okay.
So what happens is you have a template and you code it, and you code it, and you code it, and you code it, and it gets encoded with deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper frequencies till it starts to take on like a form, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that form has there's a template, which meaning it's an energetic framework that is encoded to grow a structure on, to create a structure with, and to build a framework on. So there's a template. We create a framework, which is a grid, because an energy field is a structured grid. How is that? Because when light rotates, we're always in motion. So when
Mm-hmm.
light rotates, it becomes a toroidal field. But if it's still, it's a grid. And that's what holds structure. So just like you're going to put scaffolding up to hold up a building, you're going to put scaffolding up to hold up the body of what's being created, the framework, right? So everything has a structure.
Okay.
So the soul will meet with creation level beings and other souls that it's working with on the other side, and it'll come up with a game plan, and that'll be encoded into the soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it'll have a form, and that form travels down through different energetic portals known as here chakras, right? But they're
Mm-hmm.
really portals. And so it'll come down through the top of the head. So you've got there's 4 chakras above the head. There's the divine gateway, which takes you, universal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the universal gateway, the galactic gateway, the soul star, which contains all the soul codes for the soul, right?
Okay.
From lifetime. And it'll come down. So let's say you have the oversoul. And now the oversoul's created a soul aspect, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's split off a section of itself and coded it. And that soul aspect, we're talking about just coming into being for the first time, okay? I'm
Okay.
taking a step back. Just coming into being for the first time is a soul aspect. So you've separated from the oversoul, and now you're going to incarnate, right? You've met
Okay.
with the people you're going to meet with on the other side, souls you're going to be working with, creation level beings overseeing the structure of life and helping to evolve and create it and maintain it. And now you're ready. You got a game plan. And in my understanding, every soul has two primary things that it comes in with. It's got individual evolutionary things for its own soul, right? And you could have
Mm-hmm.
15 evolutionary things or one evolutionary thing, but it has an evolutionary purpose for being, and it has a contributive purpose for being. Okay?
Okay.
And so it comes in for both. right? How many
Hmm.
subcategories under those two main categories remains to be seen and depends on the soul. And so now you're going to incarnate. So the body is formed, and then the energetic anatomy takes place. I don't know how that forms. I can't tell you that. And now you're going to come in. So you make your way down through those four above the head.
Hmm.
You come to, and as you do that, you know, you come down through the atmosphere in the earth and you start to take on information and soul codes from the earth upon your arrival traveling down, right?
Hmm.
You come into the body and you travel down through those portals. Now, what happens is you come in and your white light is now refracted. Why? Because it's been split up. And it's been split up into those seven primary chakras in body, right? And
Hmm.
what those are those, each one of those are their perceptual, psychological states of being that govern different aspects of life, of emotion, of evolution. And the reason that each one governs something is so that there's separation between the soul and the aspects of its completeness, so that it can have the self-reflection to be able to learn through those centers, through that self-reflection, right?
Hmm.
And it creates an ability to learn at different levels, individuated and yet interconnected. Okay. And so your very life, your very consciousness, your very soul is always connected. So when you come into the body, when the soul comes down and it comes into the body, only so only so much of the soul aspect can fit in the body. So what happens is, as the soul is coming in, only part of that soul aspect can come into the body. And that becomes the personality for the lifetime. So your personality is an aspect of your own soul that came in and animates the body. The rest of your soul exists around you in your energy field. So all of those layers of your in your energy field are your soul, right? That
Hmm.
your soul aspect. And it's connected to your higher self, your oversoul, through a stream of information directly. It's like a cloud storage over your head. So
No.
it's connected to its higher self, and that higher self is connected to the oversoul from which you came. That oversoul from which you came is connected to the unified field, which is connected to source. And that's how everything is connected to everything else. Now, how is that information received and exchanged? Your chakras. So as you experience, as you respond, as you react, right? As you
Hmm.
perceive, that is being cycled through your energy centers and out into the fields in which you're interacting. And so your life is a feedback loop between you and the universal field that you're living in. And so you are contributing your consciousness into the larger field in which you exist. And when enough learning takes place, that's where the seventh monkey thing comes in, where enough of something, enough of a species, enough of a level of creation will have learned something for that to be accessible for everything in that field. And then it automatically takes it on as a state of being due to that consciousness permeating everything.
And that's
And
across the
so,
collective, right? The item
yeah.
interrupt. Okay. Right. Yep.
And so embodiment is we're here to learn about who we are, where we come from, and what it what it means to be a level of creation experiencing itself, so that that creation can understand all of the things that it's capable of, all that it can give, all that it can receive, all that it can create, all that it can destroy, all that it can heal, all that it can harm and rebuild and unify. And since you're an aspect of creation, you're learning whatever you need to learn to understand who you are, to contribute to the learning of everything else that you're also connected to.
It's a lot here.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you and I have spoken about these topics quite a bit, and I'm often deer in the headlights, right? But this is
Okay.
one of the most organized understandings that I even have listening to this. And folks, there's a lot to unpack. And it's one of those things you're going to have to watch again and again and again to understand, because a lot of the questions you may have about yourselves are actually being answered here in the perspective. I mean, everyone's always asking me, why am I here? Why am I here? Well, it's to learn who we are from this aspect, right? And from what you're explaining to me, the emotions and the reactions to situations and events in our life is simply us experiencing those and understanding oursels. Is that a way to say
Yes.
it? Right. And we are here, funny enough, trying to get back up. But
Well, it's because we're trying to get back to remembering. The deepest learning you can do is to forget and remember. And when the soul is ready to leave the body, okay,
mm-hmm.
when we finish our journey here, it's the bottom three chakras that hold the soul into the body. Why? Because they're the densest. So the root chakra, well, actually there's the earth star, which is 6 to 12 inches, and it varies depending on the person and their resonance and their magnetic pull, right?
Mm-hmm.
Under their feet, which anchors the soul into the body.
Okay.
And then there's the root, which is right at the base of your spine where your pubic bone is. And then there's the sacral chakra right under your navel, about 2 inches. And then there's the solar plexus, which is right under your rib cage where your diaphragm is at. I don't want to say too much about anatomy because I don't know much about it. So once those release, then the soul can start rising up through these higher chakras. How long that takes depends on how many obstructions there are, how many things there are tying the soul here in these realms, whether guilt or fear or resistance or shame or other people's energy, energetic cords, contracts, agreements, those type of things. But once those three are released, the soul can start to rise up through the other energy centers and out through the top of the head.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to kind of switch gears a little bit is helping us understand a little bit more about you. You've got an incredible amount of knowledge here. I call it access to information. All right. And it's one of the reasons that, again, we work together, because you have, that. And can you help the audience understand how you work with people?
Yes.
I mean, and the kind of folks that you're able to assist?
Yes. I typically work with people who've already done a lot of work on themselves, because not that we're all in process, which all means we're really deeply capable and evolving. Why? Because you're in motion. And the very nature of the fact that you are in motion means that you're learning, which means that you're in process, which means that there's a capability, because there's a process, even if it's a difficult one that you're stuck in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I read frequencies. and I work at the level of the core of the being, the very foundations upon which we are exist, have been created, exist, and continue to live and operate from. So I work at the level of the soul. And how I do that is I access the information of your soul itself from within it, from within the unified field, from within all of the connections that it has to its soul
Hmm.
family and its soul group. I'm not going to get into soul family and soul group.
Sure.
Um, the the soul family and the soul group, all of these ties to the other side that also are connected to you. Also, I work within across the entire dimensional bands of all the universes. So throughout the unified field. So wherever something is, because everything, because you're alive, you vibrate. Because you vibrate, you have frequency. Everything in existence has a frequency signature, which means it can be equated to a number, which means it can be read, it can be accessed, much like you would repeat a mantra over and over and over again to come into resonance with it, right? Or
Hmm.
hum or thing to come into resonance with it. Once you do that, you're resonating at the level of the thing that you were uh, at the very level of the sound that you were emanating to bring yourself to, right? Because we're made of sound and light. So that's a form of teleportation. It takes you there, and now it's accessible. So that means anything that ever happened to you is still exists and can be referenced. And when you bring those frequencies into alignment with each other, you can access what happened from the source at which it took place, from where you are, and bring those timelines into direct interaction with each other. And that way they get to play out at the level at which they eat at, across timelines simultaneously for a level of resolution across both timelines simultaneously. So I work at that level, and I also work at the core. I go to the source of what where the situation's coming from. Was it a past life? Was it a future life? Was it all? There is no past, future, present. Everything's happening at the same time. But because it's all vibrating at different levels of density, right? Of
Hmm.
vibrating at different levels of consciousness and density, they seem separate, right?
Right.
So I say past life, meaning it was a life that was lived prior to the one you're having now, or a parallel life, one that, let's say your soul split up into two lives that are living side by side to learn a group lesson, right?
Hmm.
Or or a galactic life where you're out, in the galactic realms. So wherever the thing is arising from, that's where I go to the source. Now, if somebody's deeply traumatized, you don't go straight to the core because you need to be able to feel safe moving in. So I meet people where they are and access the core of what can be done based on where the person is and what's safe and what's accessible. And there's an important thing. I don't do the work for you or to you. I do it with you because
Right.
the whole point is that I we're the whole point is to walk each other home. And by that, a really amazing practitioner called Delight, if you want to look her up, she's quite quite magnificent. She works with galactic pendulums. Always said, we walk each other home. And what that means is that when we stop those, when we help each other remember and utilize who we are, what we have, and help bring each other online with where we came from, who we are, where we came from, and why we're here, then we grow in a way that changes the nature of the very life in which we live. And so when I work with people, my thing is how what do you how can I engage you so that we are conscious co-collaborators in your process. We're working together to bring to resolve it because it happened. You are a part of it being created and you're going to be a part of it being resolved. And how can I hold space to assist you alongside you doing that, to facilitate it? And that's how I work. And so there are times when I will do something for someone if it needs to be done because it's not accessible to work on from a
Sure.
collaborative way. And mostly that's how I work. So let's say there's trauma or there's anxiety or there's chronic fatigue or health issues or mental health issues. We will go to what created that, right? And we'll start to work from there. And what is really powerful about working from the source from which things arise is that it doesn't just treat the source of what is happening that's related to it. Think of a tree, right? There's a seed and something will grow out of it. So just like a
Hmm.
wound, right? Just like a wound will start to spread, right, throughout, like a wound will spread out through your body, or roots will spread out from a tree, and they start to branch off into different areas, right, of the
Hmm.
body, or the roots will branch off into different areas and the tree will grow up and get different limbs. So too do things in our life become systemic, right? They they branch off of each other. So let's say you had there was a lot of traumatic abuse in childhood. So you start to drink, then you start to smoke, then you start to numb with food, right? And then that anger builds up, and now there's having an explosive temper. But it all came from being abused, right? And
Right.
now the lack of an ability to feel. All of those things came from the same thing. So when you work at the core at which something arose, what's so miraculously powerful about that is all of the things that stemmed from it are also going to get worked on. Just like when you water the roots of a tree,
Mhm.
everything around it gets watered too. And so now the things closest to that arose from that wound are going to get the most healing. And the farther you go out from it, that energy is still going to be there. It just won't be as intensive because it's traveling farther. And you're treating all of the things that stemmed from that when you go to core. And that's what I try to work at. Okay.
So, no worries. So, when people want to work with me, they typically say, I've got a shoulder problem or I've got a back problem, right? And they want to go to a healer. So Madeline asks an amazing question, right? So she's done a lot of work on herself. She says, how do I know when I'm ready for an hernia? How do I know? And this is a great question. How do they know they're ready for this deep soul work you do? How will they know that you're the go-to person?
Your soul will tell you.
So just use your own discernment.
Yes.
Okay. And you said it earlier, real quick here. When you've done the work on yourself and you're looking for that next level, it's one of the clues, if we will, if I could say that. How do
Yes.
they, yeah. And
Um,
then how do they reach you? Okay, I apologize. Keep talking
oh,
to me
no.
to interrupt you.
I am so grateful for you. Ken is a remarkable friend, and nothing ever goes one way. I grow and learn so much from him. He's really remarkable.
Mm.
Very. Um, so, and what sometimes when difficult things happen too, this is off topic, and I wanted to add it because it's important. Um, the soul's job is to protect itself, to learn, but also to make sure that it doesn't get so harmed that it can't continue to learn, right? And so sometimes it'll splinter off and leave. Like aspects of the soul will splinter off and leave during difficult times. And we require the fullness of the soul with which we came with to do the work, to be present enough to really carry out what we came to do evolutionarily and contributively. So I can also help bring those soul parts back.
So how do they reach you?
The best is my website.
Okay. And Kimberly posted that in the chat window on Narnia of Light. There's another question here from Gina, and Gina says, "Do twin flames have different oversouls?"
They could or they could not.
Okay, so there's really no hard fast rule with that.
Isn't.
Okay, cool. And then the final one, Cheryl, just to answer your question, yes, this video will be available on the Conscious Awakening Network under their podcast series, and I'll also upload it to my YouTube channel, kenlloydofficial.com or at kenlloyd.official on YouTube in a couple days. And then, Arnie, I think you're going to reference your video on your website as well. Is that accurate?
Yes, and if you can't remember the website, it's just Narnia of Light. Also, I have gone through a lot of upgrades, like higher self download and a lot of ascensional changes. And so I prefer to go by Orisis, ORISIS. That's my preferred name. And I'm continuing to use Narnia of Light because that's what I practice under.
Okay, cool. Now, on your website, you actually have the option for I think you call it a discovery call?
Yes.
Okay, so is it Kathy, I believe? So Kathy, our Nerdy doesn't have you fill out a form, but I believe you have a 15-minute quick discovery call. And again, you can check that out on her website and spend 15 minutes of some amazing, incredible time with our Narnia to get quite some insight. And then Gina come back with, can twin flame contract be, there must be something going on with you, Gina, with your twin flames, right? Can a twin flame contract be postponed to another incarnation? Cancel the contract for this time.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
All right. So I think all contracts can be canceled, correct?
Unless it's the soul's agreement to hold that contract as part of its learning.
Okay. All right, cool. So, folks, unless there's some additional questions, I think we're going to call it an incredible show. Arnarni, is there anything else you'd like to add or talk about? You've got a few more minutes.
I would like to take questions rather than just have me talk. That's okay.
Okay. So, Gene, I'd like to know, is that something either one of us can do regarding the cancel the contracts? Is this something you can do? Potentially. I mean, I guess every situation is different, but Gene is asking, do you have the capability to break contracts if the universe says it's okay?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Gina, I definitely reach out to her. She can totally assist you with that. Okay, so Kim, Kim, I know I'm doing your job, but I'm actually having fun doing it. And you're muted.
Wait a minute, who is the better one?
Oh, so Monty says, what is the most important thing that you believe we need to go know today? So I think, Monty, what you're asking is, what is the most important thing we need to know at this time in our evolutionary process? I'm going to rephrase that. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of a broad spectrum question, right? So what is the most important thing that our Narnia believes we need to know today? Does that make sense to you? I'm not even sure of that particular question in Narnia.
I get the energy that it's more of a personal. Is that more personal in nature about what's more important on an evolutionary level at a personal level? I'm going to say that because you are of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
you are already a creation level being. Remember that because it's the most important thing you're ever going to know. Why is it the most important thing you're ever going to know? Because it helps you understand that you came from the source of everything and you are an aspect of it. And while you may not be connected to it, that is what the very nature of your being consists of.
Okay.
Through the magnitude of that you can bring into awareness through ongoing work and connection to bring that power back online through remembering and being able to channel it consciously through you in this lifetime.
So when we remember who we are, it brings the power back in. And I say power in the most, elegant sense here.
Yeah.
So Mary Ellen asks, how come we can't break our own contracts? Why a mediator? Can we break some of our own contracts?
Yes.
Yeah, but some of them take a little bit more scope and awareness, I guess, of those contracts, which is why we need someone like you.
Or anybody else out there who does that. Yes.
Okay, cool. So Mika, when you spoke about the cycles at the beginnings of creation, does that relate to the idea of this lifetime being a simulation? I'm not even sure. I'm going to repeat that question. When you spoke about the cycles at the beginning of creation, does that relate to the idea of this lifetime being a simulation? I'm not sure how to quite understand that question myself. So if we can't, we can move on.
But I think that's an important one. Can you read it one more time?
Yeah. When you spoke about the cycles at the beginning of creation, does that relate to the idea of this lifetime being a simulation?
Adeshinanotash koyatan koyatrushni shikayan drosnen toyatrushni shikayatrashni shikoyan kuyatashikanayatrashni shi hain kiyatutashna. In effect, everything is a simulation. Why? Because it is a projected level of creational circumstance meant to embody learning. Okay? And in that, everything is a simulation.
Right. So the environment's being created so we can have the experience, or the simulation is being created so we can have the experience to learn.
Right. It exists somewhere in creation. It's been brought into being to help us learn.
Okay. Cheryl's asking the question, our Narnia, are there different kinds of movement that take place during embodiment? And I don't understand the scope of that question.
Can you ask for more information?
Yeah, Cheryl, can you pop into the chat? We'll come back to you if we have time, but can you pop into the chat and provide some more context around your question? Thank you.
And then
Go ahead.
After that, I wanted to somebody asked why we forget. Can we answer that one next?
If she comes back, yes. Yeah. So Dennis comes back and says, oh, hold on. Oh, Cheryl's just responded. Soul movement, lateral in addition to the top of the head. So on Narnia, are there different kinds of soul movement, lateral, in addition to the top of the head during embodiment? I don't.
Ano hain chitunda shi koya toshne and han kayushin maya tukaya shikatana maya tokoya ekoshinana ekuya tushne ikoya drushne and tekaya chana maya kai. So you're going to hear me talking light language, which is the language of the soul. It's the expression of my frequency and my connection to the universe, and that the frequencies of the unified field and the frequencies of my soul providing a feedback loop of understanding that manifests as the light language that I'm speaking. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I do that is because I'm conferring with my team. All of us come in with a team. That was another thing. I'm going to come back to the question, but I wanted to explain for people so they're wondering why I'm dialoguing. We all come in with a team. Doesn't matter if you're Jerusalem the walk-in, our Narnia the higher self download, Juan the garbage man who was born during a difficult 25-hour labor. Mm-hmm. we all come in with guides to help us navigate our journey here. Just like you'd have a crew on a ship to help navigate the boat, right? Mm-hmm. To help steer the boat, because there's so many moving pieces, one person couldn't keep an entire ship running, right? It takes a lot to come down here. So lateral movement. Are you asking about different ways that the soul enters the body?
Yeah, we're not going to be able to know from Cheryl until she writes back. So we're gonna move on to the question if that's okay with you. Oh, Cheryl says yes.
Okay, yes. The soul can enter the body from any portal. It just typically comes in through the top of the head. But let's say that there's disturbances and it can't get in through the top of the head. It might come in through the navel.
Oh, okay. So like I think you said that earlier, right? There's exceptions to the typical process.
It
All
might
right.
come in sacral chakra instead of the crown, it just depends.
Okay. So Dennis's question, do you access non-duality situations as an example beyond the holographic hologram matrix universe?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought you did because you have access to the unified field in a very, very connected way. Okay, does your explanation of oversouls tie into the stuff material? Oh, you may or may not recognize Ruth Montgomery, but does your explanation of oversouls tie in any way with the Seth material channeled by Ruth Montgomery? And I'm sorry if you don't have access to that relation.
I've been on the planet a very short time, so no, I have not read that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Short time being short time. Right.
Yeah.
So Ven, I apologize. We're not gonna be able to answer that. It's the historical reference that just isn't available at this very moment. Okay. So Mary Ellen asked a question. So if this place was to learn, how come we don't keep our memories?
Okay. Onera shikaran manata inturan shakaya dushni shikaya drusnisi ashni unkuya drushni shan takaya droshne inkuya drushni shakaya shakaya druka inoko kamaya droshne inkuya druski anamoko cheta drushni shayan druka. Okay, that is as varied. That answer is as varied as there are souls in existence. Okay, so
Mhm.
but there's a fundamental. The fundamental is one of the fundamentals is, and then I'm going to explain something else that's a little off the mark, but also part of it. Because I love to push the boundaries. Got to push the boundaries. It's the nature of evolution to push your boundaries. That's how things ascend and expand. So I'm a rebel by design. Um, the Okay, so because you're coming through all of this density, the denser things get, the less clear they are, right? So just by nature of entry and level of density, a lot of that gets stripped away. Okay.
Mhm.
Another reason is because if we remembered everything, then we wouldn't focus on what we came here to learn.
Right. So kind of blinders on to keep us down this crazy path that we seem to be weaving.
Yes.
All right. So Madeline's just full of questions. I really like her. So what single exercise can we do to help remove the veil of illusion and bring us closer to our true selves? Basically, the way I see it is accessing who we really are. Are there exercises that are helpful with that?
So, yes. And I think the best thing that anyone can do, and as has been repeated over thousands of years of human history, thousands and thousands, longer than we can count, longer than has been documented, um, is to sit down and tune in and just notice what you notice. Because that is dropping in to the consciousness of your own life force. And your consciousness of your own life force is created to the very nature of the universe from which you came. They're aspects of each other. And in that silence comes the resonance of being that starts to come into conscious awareness. And as it comes into conscious awareness, the language of the soul starts to be perceivable. And through the language of the soul, the voice of the universe can be heard. So what do I mean by that? You fully engage the mind. And when you fully engage the mind, it's focused. And now it can release into that focus. And when it's released into that focus, then it can let go. And when you let go, what you're letting go into is the very field in which you exist.
Hmm.
And then you can give the order to yourself, to your soul, because that's what's running the show. That's what's animating the body. You don't have to worry about whether or not it can do it. That's the nature of itself. You just have to get out of its way, which is the hard part.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We all say, as I run up and leap off camera to go get my falling books, it's easier said than done. So when you let go, you focus the mind. When you focus the mind, it can release into that focus. And when it releases into that focus, then it can let go. What can it let go into? The field in which it exists. And when you let go into the field in which you exist, then you can say, become the consciousness in which everything exists. Become the consciousness in which everything exists.
Okay.
And then become the unified field. And when you give yourself that focus, that order of direction that shifts you back to where you came from, you leave room to perceive everything that is. Not discernibly, just by nature of becoming it, because that's where you're directing your focus. And when we direct our focus in that way, then we can say, now become everything within the field as an aspect of that field itself. And what happens when we focus our attention and then let it go? It's like a wave, an energy stream now is dispersed. So it goes back to particle. And when it goes back to particle, it can release into the movement of the creation from which it comes. And now it becomes a part of everything because you've dispersed yourself into the very consciousness of which you exist. And then when you do that, and then you add in everything within the field as an aspect of existence of the field itself, that, because you're directing it back to the source, scatters because it's not in form anymore. It becomes part of the everything that is. And now you're able to be a part of all of that. And you're referencing it. And when you reference it, you're taking in the vibration of it. And when you take in the vibration of it often enough, you start to resonate at that level. Your cells pick it up, the fluids in your body pick it up, the very nature of your tissue picks it up. Everything picks it up. And it changes you.
I will write that down. We have a final question here from Gina. I'm sorry. I apologize. Did I interrupt you?
No, not at all. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, Gina has a final question here, and then we got to go top of the hour. But how does mental illness affect the soul? Or doesn't it? Does it or doesn't it, I guess?
It's a manifestation of either a separation from the soul or a soul wound emanating into the incarnation and creating the illness.
So when you're able to heal that soul wound, there's a potential that mental illness rectifying itself. Is that a fair extrapolation of that?
Yes.
Okay, everyone different, but
or when the soul, that the soul aspect that's missing comes back, it can help lessen or alleviate the condition to a varying degrees, either completely or in varying degrees, depending on the severity and the time and the factors involved. And it could be, I would say very rarely is it ever immediate, but it can progressively get better over time. Yeah.
Okay. So folks, that's going to be for you. And I thank, Anarnia immensely for that incredible explanation. And yes, again, it's going to be available for replay in many, many places. And I will send a link out to everybody who signed up today for the YouTube channel so they can watch this over and over. In final closing, I do the transformational healing bi-weekly Thursday, and that is tomorrow. If you want to have the healing session with me, you head over to the website and sign up. Kimberly, is there anything that we need to talk about? We need to miss? I know you're sitting over there patiently and quietly. And by the way,
You
everyone,
get to do all the fun
I
stuff.
know. Well, that's because it's your birthday today.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, it is. I have a
Oh,
great birthday, 5/15. So
happy birthday.
thank you. And then they call it a double nickel, so I have lots of fives today.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's right. 555.
Yep, lots of fives. So thank you, thank you. Another great session. Thank you, Orisis, for this session. This has been great. And I'll be there tomorrow. Will I be
Oh,
back in
yes,
my
you.
same position, Ken? Do I get to do the questions again?
Yes, yes, yes. We'll get you back on track, sis. All
Okay.
right.
Well, thank you to everyone, Ken, to Kimberly, and to everyone here. It's just such an honor.
Yes, thank you. Everyone have a beautiful night, and we will see you again and again and again. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Happy birthday. So much love to you.